Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing the new dual casting seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which the first special card that we play in our turn, we play twice. That makes special spamming decks incredibly powerful, including this one right here. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Syndicate off-the-books crimes deck, and you could play this as either off-the-books, or if you'd like to, for whatever reason, you could switch it over to lined pockets. It's just about the same thing either way. What we are trying to do is spam a whole bunch of crime cards because we play crimes twice as many times as usual in this event. And so that means things like, say, for example, Fisstech are suddenly so much better than they were before because this is basically maximum profit and one unit removal in one turn, which is just amazing value. So that, along with a whole bunch of other crimes and cards that give us crimes, like Shady Vendor, like Triss Telekinesis, like Cleaver, and so on and so forth, means that we have tons of value coming from all over this deck. What we'd like to do at the beginning of the round, though, before we start spamming all those crimes, is ideally you use your leader ability to get a little bit of coins. That way you can activate the tribute ability on Sir Skewertooth, get that immunity, and then you have a powerful Intimidate 2 engine that's going to get boosted by 2 every time you play those crimes, and because, in general, you're going to be playing around 2 crimes every turn, that's going to make this guy humongous and very, very difficult for your opponent to answer. So that's generally going to be our win condition, possibly in both rounds, because we can then bring him back with Renew. Renew, of course, if it's the first special card we play in our turn, we can then play twice, so that means we can bring back both Skewertooth and one other unit from our graveyard. Generally speaking, I would say the next best target for it would tend to be Senior, because if you get some low-value units on the board, you can convert them into Cutup Lackeys, either just one of them or pay the tribute and get a second one as well. In general, if you spawn in some Firesworn Zealots, which we have a few crime cards that can do that, those are probably your best options, or just something else that doesn't have an ability that's already been damaged down to a 2 or 1 point card. So then you do that, and you have Senior himself, who gets boosted when you play crime cards, and the lackeys, who will deal damage every time you play a crime card. So that gives you tons of value for the thing that you're going to be doing a whole lot already. So there's all that. There is also Bincy. She is pretty risky, so if you want to play it safe, you could swap her out for an Azrael to get a defender out here. Granted, defenders tend to get answered pretty quickly as well in this event, but in theory, given how quickly we can generate coins, if she does not get answered quickly, then she is going to get boosted very fast as well. And we also have Sigi Reuven Mastermind, because he can give us a guaranteed source of collusion, so that's another way to get double crimes every turn, even if we're starting off by playing a unit. Or if you'd like to, you can also play cards from different gang categories. If, for example, you did not see the Crime Piggy, then this might be a way to make that happen. Granted, we do have multiple Crown Splitters in our starting deck, so a little bit of a competing Crown Splitter priority there. But then, you know, tutors like Ferko to help us out as well. And we also have Harald Gord as a finisher in round 3, who will certainly get up to that full 12-point boost as well. And that's generally what you're trying to do. You have a few other spenders with things like Bare-Knuckle Brawler for damage, and you can also use Eventide Plunder, which, because you're going to play this twice, you can use this to get Brawlers for damage, or Sea Jackals for boosts, or any of a number of other spenders that could vary depending on the situation, which one you'd like to use there. And we also have the new Count Reuven's Treasure, which is an interesting one because this is a way to get a special card, or namely a crime, out from an artifact, which is not something you usually see. And we have, I believe it's 10 crimes in our starting deck, so we are going to have a huge profitability on this. And depending on how many coins we already have when we use it, it's almost like a built-in jackpot, the leader ability that is, and that however many coins you are over-generating, that dictates how powerful of a crime card you will get when you play this. So, for example, if you overprofit 4 when you play Count Reuven's Treasure, then you're going to get a 4 provision cost crime card, and a lot of those are good, so that's useful. Or if you have more coins when you play this, then you're going to overprofit by even more, you might get an even bigger crime card. So there's that aspect, and then also whenever you overgenerate coins, you gain a counter, which will turn into a free coin that you're getting every turn. So another way to help sustain coins, although for the most part, that's something that we are not going to have too much trouble doing. And that's a look at the deck. So tons and tons of crimes, giving us lots of boosts and lots of damage. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Scioa'tael here, and they'll go first. Alright, so we have a ton of specials here, and love the Fisstechs. That's fantastic for removal. but we have some low-end specials. We might be able to do better than that. We can tutor some stuff out with Ferko. Collusion, we'd like to get with Sigi, because that's kind of the bonus value we get from having Sigi in the first place, so we might still mulligan this, and also definitely love seeing Skewertooth at the beginning. That's probably what we'll build around in that case. We could use Senior plus one of the tokens that we spawn in to facilitate that. Probably can do better than the direct Lackey or Brawler, though Brawler could be more of our dedicated spender. Okay, so if we don't answer that Whisperer, she's going to create a bazillion copies of herself. I'd rather not have to blow through a bunch of coins to make that happen, but we might kind of sort of need to do that. And by that I mean, would that require an immediate Brawler plus a couple leader ability charges? Probably. Otherwise, would have gone Skewertooth first. Yeah, I think we answer it. I think we still answer it. Okay, just because that would have gotten a little out of hand if we had not done so. I mean, I suppose we could have seen what we would have gotten from Shady Vendor, but we'd like to have Piggy on the board before we start spamming all of our crimes. Alright, Orb of Insight. That's a good one to be creating extra, or actually, that's not going to create extra copies, because technically the Runestone came first. Catwitcher's a decent engine as well. Now, we have a potential spender on the board here, which means, but now they have 2 units, it is significantly more difficult to remove stuff. Unless, of course, we decide to go after either of these 2 with the Fisstech. Actually, I think it's more efficient to go after the Rune Mage, and then we have maximum coinage to destroy that Catwitcher. Again, under ideal circumstances, we would already have Skewertooth down. So in some ways, especially since this Catwitcher is not going to hit anything on this turn, especially when we play Skewertooth in this row, we would still need to use 1 more leader ability charge, but it does mean they're going to have 1 more unit on the board, which does make it much harder for us to just take out everything with the Brawler. But I am tempted to do that. Don't have Renew to get Skewertooth back yet, though. Okay, we'll still go Fisstech. We'll still go Fisstech. I mean, he does have a single Intimidate, so he is still an engine and a coin spender as well. Okay, that Seer is another card we would like to remove. I'd rather not have to blow through all of our removal here and now, because Fisstech is really powerful. But these Orb of Insights are going to make these Seers quite big. So that is a very nice combo. Let's see. We're on 5 coins at the moment. See what our options could be with Ferko. Theoretically, Hysteria, which on the same target, if we use both copies, give us 9 damage, which is enough to remove one of them. And give us a bunch of coins as well. That might be worth doing. First, spam a bunch of coins, because that's going to get us pretty high up there, I think. I think we're basically spending everything, and then we're doing it. So then we go Hysteria on... We should technically go for the higher one, because we have enough damage to remove it anyway. And then... we just spend here, I suppose. It's not a huge difference maker there. It's just not removing anything. Alright, it's a Sorceress. Now that's a card we'd like to remove as well. Going for some leader ability charges there. Yeah, this is the downside of having just spent those coins that we didn't really need to spend, is that would have been a nice way to weaken this Sorceress and make it so they would not be able to use her ability on their next turn. Or at least it would require more setup. Again, we do have the means to potentially deal some damage. And she's the highest card. So just getting coins in and of itself and using that to set up the Brawler is theoretically still a decent option. So yeah, you know what? We'll just get some coins. And make sure that... and they might still be able to boost her. Kind of like to have 2 coins. Or really, we'd need 3 to set up the Shady Vendor. Yeah. Once again, we'll get aggressive on the coin spending. Just make it tough for the Sorceress to do her thing. Right, Johnny, for damage, whenever they play specials, obviously they're going to do a lot of that. I couldn't use Sorceress because they did not boost her yet, but that's very similar to what we were talking about with Skewertooth, in that if you can get these kinds of cards down before you start spamming specials, it's a lot better. Because we've mostly just been building around you, but haven't been able to fit in Skewertooth. Would have required a more patient build-up that we just did not opt to go for. And at this point, again, removal is tough when they have this many cards on the board, unless we go for something like Fisstech, which does feel like a bit of overkill. We could pass here. They'd have to go one more card down. They wouldn't have permanent card disadvantage, but it would be something. Not loving it, but maybe we just keep on spamming. And just extend the lead here. And I think we do want this round to end pretty soon, because although we do have the lead, they are, I think at this point, definitely out-engineing us, absolutely. So they should put at least, yeah, one of these on the Sorceress, because then they can use her ability. Technically, using it on this turn is a slight misplay, in that they've already gotten their bonus special card on this turn. I mean, maybe that's nitpicking. They've clearly already taken the lead here. Yeah, and there you can see, this is the benefit of having a card like Johnny when they're spamming this many Orbs of Insight. That's a big difference maker, and they do wait 2 Sorcerers. They have all this Vitality. So yeah, we might have wanted to pass on the previous turn as we anticipated. Could have been the case, because as soon as they out-engined us on their next turn, they were clearly able to pass us, given how, especially given how they had all of those Orbs of Insight. They were waiting in the wings in their graveyard, so I think we very much do need to pass here. Alright, so they did play one more card than us, so they may try to drive pass here in round 2. In general, Nature's Gift, you kind of want a shorter round in this event at least, because otherwise your board is going to get completely flooded with those tree ends. So that would make me think it's at least possible they might push a little bit here, even if it does potentially mean they'll go cards down. Don't love the Lackey and the Sea Jackal, especially since we can get a Lackey through Senior. Do want to ideally have some cut-ups and Tide Cloaks. Oh, we do have a Tide Cloak with Bincy, which is also a little bit risky there. But, okay, Triss gives us a little more power if we'd like to. Did I get rid of all of our throwaways? Kind of. But we could use an Eventide Plunder here. And technically it gives us a little bit of coins. We just want to, if we get a Collusion, have access to a bunch of different types of gangs. Which, after using much of our, what was it, our Firesworn in the previous round, is something that we might need to be a little bit careful of. Let's get the Prophet going, since that is the most effective long term. And that should do the trick. Alright, so we'll be on even cards going into round 3. Yep, exactly, and here is the Collusion. Again, if we had Sigi in hand, then we wouldn't really need this, but unless we're about to mulligan into him, we're probably not going to see him. So we have a Blind Eye, we have a Tide Cloak, we have a Cut-Up, we have a Crown Splitter. Not sure if we're going to need this Lackey then, not entirely sure who we're going to transform into one. Could be Triss. Of course, we don't necessarily know if people are going to be able to take the hit, or if they'll get destroyed. Cleaver is definitely a good pickup. Okay, so I think we stick with this. This is pretty well-rounded. The tricky thing here is going to be, how do we sneak in Bincy? Because she is certainly vulnerable, especially early on before we start generating much of our coinage. So we could play her first turn and use 2 leader ability charges immediately just to get her more out of removal range. Even then, she probably could be answered if they really wanted to do that. Technically, with Symbiosis, usually they don't want to use control early because they want to get their Symbiosis engines on the board first so that their treants become more powerful when they do that, rather than filling the board with 1 power treants. So basically, it's Bincy first and leader ability, or it's Skewertooth first. Either way, I think it's Bincy first. I think it's the hardest, or the one that they are least willing to answer early. I mean, they could, or if we were to do Skewertooth, then we'd have the immunity. They just couldn't answer it at all in that case, but I think this is a safer bet. So we want to get you in as early as possible. Okay, Figus, we might need to just remove with Fisstech. We might just need to remove him with Fisstech. And or Triss and use her to get an additional Fisstech. We'll see. Okay, so now let's go before we start spamming all of our crimes with Sir Crime Piggy. And that was the big thing that held us back in round 1, was we wanted to get him down, but didn't get him down early enough to make things happen. Okay, so this is interesting. As I was saying, this is a long round. And so that Sorceress, or rather that Whisperer, is going to fill this row, almost certainly, very quickly. And then they'll have the Treants that they spawn in from their leader ability as well. So they're going to run out of room. And for that reason, I'm a little hesitant to remove all that stuff. But, you know, we could see. Cleaver might make sense now. Another engine that ideally we'd get down early, similar with Senior, although we don't really have a card we'd like to use yet to transform into a Lackey. So I think we do this. Technically speaking, we are over-generating here by a pretty significant margin. But again, because of our engines that we have on the board, we'd like to be getting that stuff set up. And we still have the Intimidate on them, so we're still getting value there. Where they lock, they go for a Cleaver. That's actually kind of interesting. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, Bincy's definitely a better card for them to lock, but obviously they get the second copy of it as well. Okay, so now we don't quite have enough coins for you or you, so we're looking for something that generates coins now, and Fisstech does immediately get us to maximum, as could Triss if we get that. Still have the Intimidate proccing from Skewertooth, so we do have one engine, at the very least, on the board. There's something to be said, potentially, for using Eventide Plunder here to see if we can get another spender, because if we were to get a Bare-Knuckle Brawler, then that it also has Intimidate, so we'd get one more engine. So I might do that just to see what we end up with here. And Firesworn, we would not otherwise have access to. So I actually kind of like going that route here. And it is an engine. And here is what I was looking for. We already have the, use this V1? Yeah, sure, we'll go for it. We already have Crown Splitters, of course, plenty of them. But having 2 of these on the board, I think it's useful. And yeah, we're fine with them removing it. Yeah, it's an engine. It would have been nice. That is an engine too. They have some overkill damage, but this is what I was referring to. They are going to run out of space very quickly, and with low value cards, I mean, 3 points is not terrible, but 1 point Treants is not really how they want to be using up all their space. So we need a little bit more before we can use Shady Vendor, and we have 2 of them. So we would ideally like to get you down. And technically speaking, this Zealot would be the best target for us to convert. I kind of want to keep it because it does mean a better collusion. See, we have Crown Splitter, we have Tide Cloak, we have Firesworn, we don't have Cut Up, and if you use, basically we're sacrificing a Firesworn for a Cut Up. I think we'll still do it, because it does also mean 1 more engine. Yeah, we'll just go for you. Just you. I know Bincy's locked, but she's obviously a 9, which, well, I mean, tell you the truth, you actually could have made the case for converting Bincy. Yes, obviously we'd lose 5 points on her, but would get another damaging engine. And the bonded ability, yeah, you know, I think you actually could have made a pretty strong case for converting Bincy the more I think about it. Alright, they're getting some hand buff as well from the Bountiful Harvest, which concerns me a little bit more, just because they're starting to get a little more valuable stuff here. Or at least the potential to get a little more valuable stuff. Alright, so now I think we need more coins more quickly. So let's go for Triss. And this might even be a way to get one of our Firesworn units back, depending on what we see here. Hysteria. Would we have enough? So it's 9 damage total. It's just barely enough to break through Figus. That is tempting. Otherwise, Smuggle or Congregation does give us the Firesworn units to set up Collusion. Could potentially still make something like that happen with Shady Vendor, so maybe we settle for Hysteria, which is, at least short-term, a better option. I mean, we don't need to get rid of Figus right now, but he is a pretty obvious target, so I'll go for it. And now we're at maximum coinage, so we can certainly do a bunch more stuff here. Alright, Force Protector, this is what I mean. Now they've gotten some bigger cards here set up. And they do go for the Lackey. Smaller body, but it was an engine, whereas Triss is not. Okay, so now we can go... I'm thinking it's going to be double Shady Vendor. Maybe seeing if we can get another Firesworn unit out here to set up Collusion on our second to last turn, and then possibly just waiting on Fisstech to see whatever their biggest card is and removing that. We'd kind of like to have a Spender, so we don't have one anymore. So that is unfortunate. And we could get one with a melee row Shady Vendor if we were to go with the Eventide Plunder. So I think we might do that. Although we don't get it. Darn. Okay. Hysteria does remove Force Protector. As I was saying, that's 9 damage exactly. So that is the perfect amount. Otherwise, Smuggle is what we were saying could be useful as well. I mean, either way, we're going to be over-generating coins here. And since a lot of the value from Smuggle is supposed to be coming from that profit, it feels like maybe that's not quite the best fit here. Squirrel is totally fine. I mean, small pan buff, but... Okay, so now... Do we go melee row Shady Vendor, even though we have the coins to go range row, just because it makes it easier for us to actually get a Firesworn card on the board to set up a bigger Collusion? I think that is probably the case. We passed up on that opportunity last time. Or Eventide Plunder is the other thing that I was actually trying to get last time. So if we do this, yes, we can get Firesworn. That's great. It's also a Spender, so that helps us in both regards. And then you're an Intimidate engine, which we will still have some time to power up and gives us another engine in case something gets answered here. Another coin spender, rather, if you get answered. So we can do this. And then... Yeah, I think we can spend pretty aggressive here. We don't really have much else we need to spend with, besides possibly that Disciple on our next turn, but we're likely to get a bunch of other stuff from Collusion on our next turn. Okay, so this is where we see if they put Veil on, because if they don't, then they're making it easier for us to decide who to Fisstech here. And as I was saying, they're running out of board space. Granted, we're going to start removing stuff soon. But now let's go Collusion first, because this might completely fill our rows. And by that I mean, it will probably more or less completely fill our rows. So... they will forfeit, and we'll take the win. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have Skewertooth, which is a great card to start off with, especially if we can get Renew to replay him in a later round, which we do not currently have. Sigi, and we have Collusion in hand. We could get rid of that, because we could guarantee that we can get it later, but we could potentially use Sigi to play other units instead, double units. So maybe we'll still hold on to this. I think the Brawler is good, but we might dump him because we could potentially get one with the Eventide Plunder, and we'll get another Eventide Plunder there. So yeah, in that case, we'll swap out a Smuggle maybe. Okay, granted, would have preferred that to the Cutup Lackey, but we're trying to see if we could maybe still get that Renew. Alright, they'll start with the Ardfee and Tortoise. So... I'm definitely leaning toward just getting the coins initially, and then getting Skewertooth down. There are, technically speaking, potentially still some ways they could remove a unit, even without directly targeting one, because, of course, he does have that immunity, but it should be difficult. So, hopefully, that means this can be a relatively safe and powerful engine for us to build around. Redea. For the lock. Okay, well... all the more reason why having this immunity is going to be a pretty big deal then, I think. So, we do have this Lackey, which is also an engine. Technically, Senior is as well. But I think... I'm going to save Ferko. I don't think we need to use him just yet. I think we're going to try to get by with just Skewertooth, at least initially here. Obviously, the earlier we play the engines, the better. Might end up getting one out of this, though. And we could either go damage with Brawler or go wide with the Disciple. I actually think we want to go Disciple here. It's slower with the spending, so we can only use it once per turn. But we could get another one of them. But this potentially gives us a way. I'm going to put them both in the same row, because that way, if we do this, We have two low-value cards right next to each other we could use as targets for Senior's Tribute if we want to. And that gives us a lot more engines on the board. Alright, it's Magni Division, and they will play Bluehurt. I mean, they are going with the Toussaintois Hospitality. So I think we can get a lot of value out of this Fisstech. The primary question is just, when do we use it? Because they're going to get some pretty humongous units. And so as tempting as it might seem to go after this 16-point Tortoise, they might get something bigger still. Alright, so now we do have the coins to go for Senior here, and we could place him in between these two. As I was saying, that is definitely a good location to set him up. They do still have the Collar and perhaps some additional control, so still some concern that they might be able to answer some of those engines, but at that point we'd have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 once we create the lackeys. So I think we're still feeling okay about that. So this is a good opportunity to go this route, I think. Arguably could have used the coinage there, but we'll see if we'll have other preferable uses of the coins later on. Okay, so False Siri. We're obviously going to boost her at least a little bit and continue to boost more of their cards. So again, this is why we waited before we Fisstech. Technically speaking, we could destroy Siri, but no, it's not worth using our Fisstech on that. We could add even more lackeys to the equation, but at this point, I think this is probably a disposable card we'd like to just mulligan in between rounds, and we'd like to start spamming more of our crimes now. So, ooh, that is a little unfortunate, because that is where we would have liked to have gone with Congregation, which might have even been a card we wanted to play next. So we might... see, we have Firesworn, we have Cutup, we have Crown Splitter. It's a decent collusion. I would still kind of like to save it. So it's either Eventide Plunder or it is us breaking out Fisstech here. I think we'll go Plunder. Let's go here. We'll start getting damage. And... I mean, are we just going to go super duper wide? I mean, we could get even more Intimidate engines on the board, I suppose. They are also point-scoring engines in that way, too. But yeah, once Siri comes over to their side, the numbers start to work more in their favor. Alright, Oniro. Presumably into something big. They're going poison now. We're gonna go after Senior? Okay. I mean, he does have Intimidate. So he is also an engine. Still not necessarily convinced that that was the best card for them to remove. And locking that Brawler is not a huge deal, because this one can do the same thing. Having two Brawlers is not that important outside of it just having that Intimidate bonus as well. So let's see. They have a relatively large lead here, but we still have a lot of engines set up. So, Congregation, again, we, on one hand, would like to put it here where we already have some Firesworn cards, but these guys can continue to spawn in more stuff. It might be better to just go double Congregation here. I think that might be what we do, especially if we want to use Ferko later on, which I was considering using at some point. So I think that could be a good way for us to get some big tempo at the end of the round if necessary. Okay, and that's almost enough for us to catch them. We can tie them if we go with a Disciple here, which is probably worth doing. Okay, now they're Defender, which he is the best defender in this event because they get the double battle preparation, but means harder to go after the Tortoise, but we can still target this 21-point Magnet Division with the Fisstech if we'd like to. So that is pretty much an immediate way to catch them if necessary. We're, again, just trying to delay as long as possible because it's only going to become more valuable the longer we wait. So it's either that or Ferko, by the looks of things. If we were to Ferko, I guess that's a potential source of Fisstech as well. Otherwise, they are probably too big to Hysteria. I mean, we could do it on False Siri. We'd have enough damage for that, but she's 1 base power. So it's not great for bounty purposes. I think we do go Fisstech. Especially since we know, if absolutely necessary, we can still get another one. And then highest one. So I think that means that the Brawler doesn't make that much sense. So let's do that. So they'll pass, and we'll win on even here in round 1. Okay, and we do get that renew that I was saying we'd like to get to replay the Piggy in a later round, and we can replay one other card as well. That's definitely highest priority. Senior is probably next highest priority. We could either try to push for the 2-0 here, or we could dry pass, force them to go a card down, and give us double last say and card advantage in round 3. That is probably my preference. Let's swap out the Lackey. See, Smuggle gives us Fire Sworn. I would still like to have a way to get a bunch of different types of gangs on the board to set up Collusion, which with Sigi, I think we can make happen. And with Renew, we can get back Senior as well, so I think this still works. Might have wanted to get rid of Hysteria, as we were saying before. It seems like they're going to have a lot of boosting, so might be kind of hard to get the removal there. So that might have been worth swapping out, but otherwise, I do think we still dry pass here. They'll go Shoop Stay Off, probably looking for that resilience, I'd imagine. And they get it. And for the second round, they're going boosting. Okay, so one unit that's going to have 10 points carrying over, because that boost will reset. Alright, so we draw into Bincy, who, if we can set her up, is potentially very powerful, but I suspect they're going to have some ways to reset boosts, given how they're built around boosting us with their leader ability, so she might not be the best option for matchup reasons. Hysteria, as I was saying before, might be worth swapping out as well, and I do like picking up Count Reuven's treasure. So let's swap you out. Shady Vendor is good for getting additional crimes, and also because he's a blind eye, so that does give us better collusion synergies. How are we feeling about Bincy? Do we drop her all together? I think we might. And Fisstech is a great pickup, so yeah, we'll take that. Experimental Remedy for the Disciple? I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it is worth something. Of all the ones that could take out from our graveyard. Speaking of taking things out from our graveyard, yeah, we want to make sure we get the Piggy out here quickly. But if we're gonna do that, we are gonna get another card out with our second round of Renew, which we were saying we'd probably like for that to be Senior, but we want for Senior to have stuff to actually convert. And we don't yet have that. So it could mean an early Ferko, and he could be a target, and we could also use it to... don't have great options for spawning. Most of it's in our hand with Smuggle. Yeah, we have both Smuggles in our hand. Okay, so I think we're playing Smuggle first in that case. It does mean it's a little bit slower, and we like to have more crimes on the board when we do this. Or rather, more engines on the board when we play our crimes. But we do have 2 now. So that is useful, because now we can use, if we'd like to, Renew, get Senior out here, convert these 2, and also play Piggy. So I think that's what we go for here. Make sure we have enough coins, and we should have that, right? Because it's, what, 2 for you, and it's going to be also 2 for you, assuming we use that tribute, which I think we want to do. So, yep, we have plenty for that. So those will be our primary engines, I think. So let's go for it. Let's convert. We will pay the tribute. And we'll bring back Crime Piggy. And let's see, you have immunity. Does that mean it's best to play you in a row by yourself? It might. Alright, hand gets sword, which they can use to get rid of both the lackeys, actually. So that's decent. Senior is still an Intimidate engine, but we lost some damage there. So that is unfortunate. We'd probably like to go with Count Reuven's treasure, if not now, then very soon, because this does give us some long-term value with the coin sustenance. So I'm thinking we go that route. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Either that or let's just double-check what Ferko might be to get here. It's going to be Hysteria. That is, in fact, our only option. So we should probably bear that in mind. Hysteria is 9 damage, so it's almost enough to make Shoot Knight work, but not quite. So let's go with the Reuven treasure here. And, oh, speaking of which, maybe that means we set up with Hysteria. I mean, that is an engine. Where do we go? I'll go dip in the Pontar. Hit you once. I'll hit you once as well. Now you're in removal range for one of those Hysterias. And here you see, should be doing totally fine with coins for the rest of the round. Alright, Rune Mage. Into a double Nilfgaard Runestone. Tortoise. Could be a decent target to damage if we find more sources of that. And a Brawler, they don't have the coins to use him. Okay, at least not at the moment. So, Sigi is another thing we should think about. What could we use him to get? One of the Tide Cloaks, either of which would be an engine. A Blind Eye, which we do have in our hand, but I'm just also thinking about what could set up Collusion. Cleaver would be great if we could get him. He is an engine we'd like to get on the board quickly. So that might mean that it is worth going for Sigi here and now. We're on maximum coins, so we can definitely afford the tribute, and we'll be sustaining coins, as I said, with that as well. So I think we do this. Pay the tribute, and we see what we get here. Not great. Not great. I think it is going to be Shady Vendor. And it's probably going to be, technically speaking, we should do you first, and then you. You're an engine that will get boosted when we do this. And don't have much in the way of witch hunters, do we? I opted for the... We should hit you. But okay. Opted for the 5 coins. I actually oftentimes prefer the 4 coin primes. And, you know, if we had gotten a Fisstech, obviously that would have been pretty amazing. Peshin Mutinous Sword might be going for... No? Okay, going for Senior. Alright, so we still have the Bare-Knuckle Brawler on the board. He's an engine and a spender, so that is nice. We now may go into Shady Vendor melee row for that 4 provision costs prime. As I was saying, generally speaking, those tend to be a little bit better. We would like to maximize the number of gangs we have on the board before we use our Collusion. So we have 1 Blind Eye, we have 1 more in our hand. We should be totally fine from a Crown Splitter standpoint because we have lots more of those, but we need to be a little bit careful about the other stuff, like Firesworn is probably going to be one of the hardest to sustain. So let's try this, and let's see what we get here. Congregation would certainly help, but I think Eventide Plunder might be better still. More Blind Eyes, Tide Cloaks we would not otherwise have. So let's go that route. Gives us another option for a spender. And I'm going to do that, because that's going to get rid of your armor and boost us up a little bit in the process. Okay, bribery. Not really sure there's much... Well, okay, fair. Triss is definitely the best option for you. Oh, they had a Rune Mage earlier, right? So they have many more options. So pretty likely for them to get what they're looking for here. But I don't think playing stuff from our graveyard is going to be that good for you. Okay, Bincy. I mean, I have doubts that you're going to have much in the way of coin generation. Fortunately for us, because you are trying to set up a bunch of coin spending engines. Alright, so not to mention we can remove whatever their biggest card is with Fisstech. They've already played their defender, so it's not really a concern. Ferko was going to be to go Hysteria, which actually I think we can do some interesting stuff with that. If we get a little more coinage first, and we use you to weaken you down to a 6, that's what we needed. I'd like for you to be a 6 as well, I think. So now we go Ferko. Use that to get Hysteria. We hit you. And you immediately activate that that bounty. Unfortunately, yeah, not enough to kill you with the bounty. But now, at this point, let's see. Let's go. You're technically the most efficient coin spender at this stage. Alright, it's so Nero, so if they have something big and powerful, this is probably going to be it. It's Zoltan. Are they going? They're going damage, it looks like, melee row? Or is it range row for boost? No, it's range row for boost. Okay. And then a turncoat? Are they going to be dropping a coup in a minute here? Maybe. Otherwise, that's not great. I'm not sure why they would go Nero for it. They still have options for coin spenders, but really no ways to generate those coins. And so, they rage quit. No finishers necessary. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here. And they'll go first. Alright, and their Inspired Zeal, which I think might means they're going to be a Spellweaver deck. So that means tons of damage if they can set up those Spellweavers, which means we want tons of removal. So Hysteria could be useful. It's not enough to remove a Spellweaver with just one round. We need to double down on it, despite it being... Yeah, 3 damage is just not quite enough. Okay, so I think in that case, Smuggle and Congregation. Without giving us additional damage, we might be looking for other options there. And would have loved to have seen an immune Crime Piggy. But unfortunately, no such luck here. Okay. Maybe just Patience Mages. In that case. But is still unbountyable, and therefore not a great target for Hysteria. We could go for an early Cleaver. He is an engine. And maybe some leader ability charges to give him a little more fuel to spawn in extra copies of the Cleaver's muscles. Or is 1 sufficient? I mean, I'm just looking at that as a potential source of cards for Senior to transform into lackeys. Otherwise, I suppose it could end up being a Shady Vendor, since this technically has more base power than Shady Vendor or the lackeys would have. So technically is, at least in the short term, a negative point play. So maybe we'll hold off for there. Okay, Oniro, this is going to be the telling part. Is it Spellweavers? Okay, Rafford's Vengeance is obviously very strong. We can remove it, but I imagine they're going to give that the Zeal. Oh. Okay, I mean, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but we can still remove it. There's the Zeal. And, yep, it's to get more patience, okay. Alright, so we have, with Hysteria, enough damage to either destroy Heir to the Student in 1 turn, or the Rafford's Vengeance in 1 turn. This is now on a 5-turn cooldown. This, longer it stays on the board, the stronger that order ability becomes, and it has the vitality that on our next turn means it would be out of removal range. So I'm thinking we might go Hysteria here. Technically, you have 1 less base power than you do, so it's not going to be worth quite as many coins, but I think we're still okay with that. Could use these to get another Cleaver's Muscle, but we might hold on to them to see if Eventide Plunder, if that were to give us a Brawler, that could potentially make things interesting, setting up more damage. Okay, Rune Mage. Fortunately, the shields have already mitigated some of the damage. Alright, it's Griffin Witcher, is a decent engine, but not that difficult to get rid of. Granted, we are starting to run low already on our crimes here. We did not have that many to begin with. Toussaintois Adept, they only have 1 patience card at the moment, so as of right now, that's not too much of a threat, but it could become humongous if they get more on the board. So, let's see, we do have enough coins to go Shady Vendor here. I think is certainly the tempting direction to go in. See if we can find an immediate answer for one of these. Again, Letitia is, I mean, would be great to go after, but she's just significantly more difficult because of that veil. So I think we do this. Pay the tribute, of course. And it's going to be Hysteria again. I think in that case, this should be for Rafford's Vengeance. Granted, that was gonna overgenerate coins, so we perhaps could have anticipated that and preemptively done one of those, but didn't know definitively what crimes we were going to get. Alright, so Rune Word. So this is where they might get more patience on the board that will set up this Adept to become bigger. Could have made the case for going after the Adept on that previous turn, to tell you the truth, because the Raffert's Vengeance still had a long cooldown before it was going to become a threat again. Whereas, as I was saying, this gets big pretty quickly at this rate. And at this point, let's see, if we were to go Treasure Chest, with Profit 10, we'd get up to 15, which means we're over-profiting by 6. Which means what? Is that just a pickpocket for huge coinage, which is not really something that we need right now? We could use Senior to transform these two into lackeys, which at this point is +1 point on you and just gets us more engines in general. But since we're starting to run a little bit low on the crime, so we could still get one here, and one here. Suppose that might still be worth doing. It's a little slow, is what concerns me. Still a little slow. And they have started to set up a lot of engines here. They're going to immediately go after one of the lackeys. Okay. Oh, yeah, they did activate Letitia. I should have been paying closer attention. Okay, fair enough. So now that means this Adept is not really a threat. Unless they reactivate stuff with casting contests. Because now that does make their setup look much more threatening. Okay. We could still do another Shady Vendor. We can make the melee or range row work, but I do typically prefer the melee row. At this point, we would profit 10, gets us up to 14, or rather 13, which is over profit by 4, which is a 4 provision prime, which is generally, again, the best option for us. So we could get a Fisstech, which would be really nice right about now. So I think either that or similarly with the Shady Vendor. Let's go for the treasure chests. These are not the cards I wanted. We remove with 6 damage total. I mean, yes. That is worth more, but rather not go that route. I'm going to remove you. Oh, okay. Not exactly the way that I expected that to play out, but let's do one of those. We're getting a little bit closer here. Yeah, I was hoping for another Hysteria or something along those lines, or Fisstech, as I said, which could have removed any of these guys, but we just didn't have enough damage with those options to get the job done. Okay, Rune Word. Yeah, so now that Adept is going to become pretty huge, and Alumni is quite powerful at this point. It does have the Zeal they're looking for, and they're going to get another one here as well. They're going the damage routes, so I assume they're going Lackey, and probably Senior, or they'll just wait to try to find something better, or add the Bayonard student. How much is he at now? Well, they're waiting to make that bigger. Okay. Yeah, so this is getting a little scary. The longer this round goes, the stronger these become. That means any subsequent alumni become humongous. And by making this round go longer, we are facilitating that. But this might, I mean, we'd like to have a Lackey on the board now that we lost stars. Give us more damage, but I don't think we can afford this right now. That's just too slow pacing-wise. This might not be enough pacing-wise either, to tell you the truth, but we're going to try. I think we're still going to try, because this is what we need. It's going to remove a unit. I think it's you we want to go for. Higher power and same value on the order abilities, so we have almost got them. Still going to get some boosts on that Aretusa Adept even if they pass here, so we want to make sure we're passing them by a little bit more. So we'd kind of like to end our turn here, and the round here. We could still go Eventide Plunder. At this point, we just spent a lot of our coins there to get those last Cleaver muscles, so it's not going to be great unless we can get ones that come with a little bit of profit as well. Alright, they'll pass. And that means we'll win on even here, even after that boost. Okay, and we draw into Fisstech. That's definitely nice. Brawler can be decent as a spender. Triss gives us more crimes, but I think Lackey, we would really like to see a crime piggy at this point. Collusion, I was thinking we would use Sigi to get. We could play it directly from hand now, and Sigi then maybe our means to a crime piggy. We won on even, so we could dry pass here, force them to go a card down, and give us double last say in round 3. That is definitely nice. Or we can try to push for 2-0, but I think we go for the double last say. We'll get a little more value from these treasures here. Okay, so the reason they're bringing back this Banard student, it will have doomed, so it's not like they can bring it back for that 6 power order ability in the future, but by getting both of these back, these numbers will increase. They picked up where they left off in round 1, and now it means any future alumni are slightly stronger. So that means they are definitely looking to build around the alumni here in this round. So we're still looking for a crime piggy because that immunity would be humongous. So Jackal, I mean, it is a Tide Cloak, which is something we'd like to see for a Collusion to set that up more effectively, but I think it's still otherwise one of our weaker options, and we might get a Tide Cloak with Eventide Plunder, and you might be our best way to get a Fire Sworn on the board. I do like the Brawler. It is probably the best of those 4 provision units there. But, okay, I mean, it is a crime, yes, but no piggy. Not unless we happen to get it through Sigi. And they have to be looking for alumni here. And didn't they play a Rune Mage in round 1? I think they might have. If so, then of course it's much more likely that they will see one here. No, going for the Sorceress. Okay, it's a little bit of an odd choice. I suppose they already have all the setup they needed from the Banard and Aretusa students, so they don't need those anymore. And this, in that case, is going to be their primary damaging engine, at least initially. Hysteria does still work. Obviously, the first round breaks the shield. Puts a bounty, and that means the next round has 6 damage, which is enough to destroy and collect that bounty. If we think we can get Crime Piggy, then we want to do that as quickly as possible, but that's going to take a lot of coins to make that happen. But I think we want to do that. I think we want to at least see what we can get here. Yes, it's our best tempo option, but I think we need to see. No Crime Piggy. That is terrible. Terrible news for us. And may mean that we are toast. Okay, we're going to Fisstech to remove you. So at least Bincy got up to a 12 here. So she is an engine we can build around to a certain extent, but because we saw those alumni get such huge setup from the Banard students, which I imagine is what they're about. They're going to go double alumni right here and immediately answer Bincy. That's why I wanted Piggy. Piggy was the only way we could have avoided that, assuming they have another one they can get here. And they do. Unless they go range rope. No, okay. Yeah, that's what we expected to see. Okay, that's the issue. And they're probably going to use that to create another one on the next turn and immediately use its ability. So that's also pretty painful. Yeah, we really wanted Piggy there. We struck out big time. Alright, so no great targets for Hysteria right now. In which case, I think we might just use this turn to smuggle. Granted, we are already on maximum coinage, so maybe we first go Eventide Plunder. And maybe we beat them up a little bit with the Brawler. We do already have a Crown Splitter, so if we're trying to set up a Collusion, we'd like to see some other stuff, but the Prophet is not very useful for us. Let's actually go Disciple. This helps us go wide, which I think is going to be helpful. Help us sustain Firesworn, even if they do try to destroy some stuff. It's slow, is the downside, and yeah, there's casting contests. They're going to remove 2 more things on this turn. It's going to be the Brawler, and I assume probably, yep, the Disciple on the second turn. That's why we wanted to get another card over here. And I think this shield is fake. That's just left over from... Yeah, we've some visual bugs here. Okay, we could, I suppose, still get the Firesworn stuff from Smuggle, so that's... And we have 2 of those. It's not a huge problem. The Alumni now... I mean, they... How many casting contests have they used? That was the 2 from just then. Okay, they've played both casting contests from their starting hand... Or from their starting deck, rather. So it's not as if removing these Alumni are going to remove those options for them. So I think in that case... I mean, we could go for another Eventide Plunder, and that is, in fact, I think, probably the best option here. Now we do like to generate some coinage. Is still a more efficient spender. Spellweaver is a card we definitely like to remove. And we can, on our next turn, they're going to give it the Zeal, though. Still removable, and in fact, now with its higher power, more enticing of an option for us to do that removal on. I was thinking Hysteria, although technically Fisstech does work as well. Hysteria is a little less flexible, in case they have Veil, or something that it becomes bigger than a 9. So I think we are probably going to go for that here. Get rid of you. So you are the most threatening long term. We'll do this since that's technically 2 points per 1 coin. Again, I'm assuming they can't really reactivate these Alumni at the moment. Unless they have a Triss that happens to give them another casting contest. And I'm surprised they went for the Spellweaver there. Would have thought they'd have wanted it to be on Alumni earlier. I mean, yes, these can be very powerful. But they've already done all the setup for pretty huge Alumni. And it is Triss. Okay, fair enough. Well, can't say we're surprised by that. Okay, well, and they are the Alumni. So... Alumni we won't be able to stop, because that has Zeal. And that's Spellweaver. Did they use a leader ability charge on it? I think they did. We're going to try to get rid of our spender, and they can succeed, but then the question for them becomes, what do they use that big chunk of Alumni damage on? So if they don't use that on this turn, then we could remove it. Okay. Interesting. They leave that 8-point melee order unspent. So we could Fisstech you. The thing is that, I mean, it's in theory up to 8 points of value, but only if you can find an 8-point target. Which, short of Harald Gord, we will not really have here. So, that might not actually be as much of a concern as the Spellweavers that are better at spreading that damage around. We might prefer to go after you. Triss, don't definitively know what we're going to get from her. It might be capable of removing one of these guys, but we know for certain that Fisstech can. So I think we probably play it safe. Let's use that first. And then we'll... Nope. This. Then we do this. I think this Bare-Knuckle Brawler is probably going to get destroyed. And we have plenty of coin generation with double Smuggle. And possibly Collusion, some from that, or Triss. So get the value out of the spenders while we still can. Okay, we're going to reset their location, which was... what? Now it's going to give them another one of you, which is not very useful. Okay. So now I think it is... I mean, it could be a Smuggle and just use that to get another Zealot out here. But I think we're probably looking at Triss. See if we can get some removal going, which we might be able to with the Plunder. Also looking to set up Collusion here, because we're going to play that soon. We still have a Crown Splitter that I don't think they're going to do anything to, because he's not doing anything anymore. Definitely Firesworn, and that's about it. So getting a Tide Cloak would not be a terrible idea. Getting a Blind Eye would not be a terrible idea either. I think this is much more likely for them to answer. But let's go for this. And Salamander is not one of the ones that's on Collusion. Let's do this. Alright, now it's Oniro. So I wanted to get something with damage to remove the Spellweaver. We did not really find that. So this is now their most threatening card, and that's what they're going to use Chapter Wizards on, I imagine, because they definitely did not want to use it on you. Ooh. Replaying, yeah, if they only have that Alumni left. Ooh, don't think that's what they were looking for. They wanted to replay that Alumni, which would have been great. But they did not look out there. That was still a pretty reasonable chance for them to make that happen. So it was well played. They just didn't get lucky there. This is not the one that they had powered up previously, so it's just on a 1 power order ability. So they also cleared out some row space for us, which actually was going to become a bit of a concern. I think we might still need to go Collusion now, because Smuggle's going to give us more Firesworn, but we already have Firesworn. Board we want to play last, so they can't answer. He's a Crown Splitter. We already have Crown Splitters. If anything, by delaying, we risk losing a Blind Eye. So I think we do this now. And we're still going to take up a lot of row space with this. Alright, it's Gerhardt, who can be very powerful and does help synergize with those Spellweavers. Would have thought they'd have wanted to use this earlier to get another Spellweaver on the board before they start playing additional mages and spells and whatnot. They wait to use Gerhardt. Unfortunately, we can't really punish them for that, though. Okay, so I think we're just spamming this. And while we still can, these are going to be our last coin spenders, it looks like. So we should get pretty aggressive here. We want to keep them alive. So we still have a few more coins we're going to generate here with Smuggle. So we know they still have some things they've been saving up here. Okay, that's fair. Obvious targets here with the Street Urchins. Or you, but yeah, Street Urchin is definitely better because we still have the potential to make those Urchins bigger. Go for the Manhard Student. That's an odd choice. I think it definitely would have been better for them to have gone with another Spellweaver. Have the damage here. They've already used Gerhardt. They're going to play this card from hand. If it's a special, they're only going to get 1 copy of it because they've already played a special this turn. If it's a unit, obviously, it's just the 1 unit. It's Peller. Okay, fair enough. Alright, this is going to be pretty close, I think. Pretty close. Go for the double Smuggle. And I think Gord is going to be just big enough here, unless they have other engines that are still getting boosted on the board. They did not have time to use this Manhard Student that they had made at the very end, so that means with Gord, we will just barely take the win. So there's a look at a Syndicate Crimes deck for the new dual casting seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.